what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson, and over across from me, Chris Fry. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to the show. We've come up with interesting pairings in the past in movies. And we always try to pick two films that are going to be interesting to talk about. Otherwise, why pick them? And the juxtaposition between the two we have today, I feel like it's just fun to even think about. So I think it's one of the best pairings we've ever done.
See if you can pick out the theme. As I mentioned, the two films that we'll be reviewing today. This is Foot Candle Films. We're Alan and Chris. We're with the Foot Candle Film Society, Foot Candle Film Festival, and this podcast, Foot Candle Films. We get together, we talk over new movies, we give our reviews, we also talk about some upcoming movie news, and we always end the show with a recommendation of a film we think is worth going back and checking out if you're looking for something to watch in the coming days. So Chris mentioned the mixture of the two films that we'll be reviewing, and yes, we will be reviewing. First up will be Top Gun Maverick, Top Gun: Maverick. Make sure we get that name in there correctly. Followed by the latest Alex Garland film, Men. So if you can kind of figure out the theme that we're going with those two tied together, kudos to you. We will be reviewing both those films along with a few news items and then our recommendations at the end of the show. Chris, I think we have a lot to talk about, or at least I do on a couple of these, and you on maybe one or two of them. We'll see. But I think we got a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and get right into our first review of the sequel to the 1986 opus Top Gun. This is Top Gun Maverick.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
What do we have here? God, here I thought we were special.
Fellas, this here's Bagman.
Hangman.
Whatever.
What the hell kind of mission is this?
Chris, do you recall the movie 8 Mile, the one that starred Eminem?
Yes.
Okay. If you recall, at the end of that film, what they did, they were getting ready to engage in a kind of a rap battle, kind of a on stage thing, and Eminem was there, and he has a lot of stuff that other rappers were probably going to use against him in their rap. And he's like, you know what? I'm just going to lay it all out there. And then that's going to kind of make this whole thing end a lot sooner.
So he insults himself before they can.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So he just went ahead and put everything out there on the table that he basically made his own rap about himself, where he basically was saying everything bad about himself. And then that, kind of made him look good at the end of the day. So I'm going to pull a little bit of that with Top Gun Maverick, okay? I'm going to go ahead and say everything that is wrong with this movie. Okay. And then that way I can dump it over to you and see what you have to add or contribute after that point, okay?
Okay.
So Top Gun Maverick, we do have a repeat of Top Gun from was it 36 years later? I think 36 years
ago. Mm-hmm.
Still starring Tom Cruise as Pete Mitchell, codename Maverick. He's still involved in aviation, we find out, but he gets brought right back into the Top Gun world to help teach a group of not new pilots, but some of the best pilots in the world to go on a very dangerous, almost suicidal mission to save the world. So, Chris, let me go ahead and tell you everything wrong with this movie, and then I want to hear your thoughts.
How much time do we have?
I got some time.
Okay.
Is a play-by-play rehash of the original, even down to some of the exact dialogue, which some people could call that sloppy and lazy. The storyline and the conveniences of Maverick's journey, how he goes from place to place or called into action, pretty ridiculous, really, really paper thin. The plot beats along the way, super predictable in terms of who's going to be fighting, who gets chosen to go on a mission, all those things. Very, very predictable. The supporting characters, like outside of Maverick, pretty cliche, super paper thin as well. And it could be argued that this film really, Tom Cruise, good actor, but you could also say he kind of coasted on his charm through most of the film. A lot of winking at the camera, a lot of flashing the smile just to kind of get people with
That's the only look
feels.
he has.
That's the only, okay. So there, Chris is already starting. All right, I prepared for this. It's fine. Chris, all those things in place. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are problems with this film. Absolutely problems with this film. However, I want to hear your thoughts on how you felt when you walked out of the theater after watching Top Gun Maverick, because I know my thoughts. I'm guessing they're.
This is a rare
I'm
occasion
guessing
where
they're
we actually saw this film.
We
together.
did see this film together. I'm guessing our opinions are wildly different, which is why I wanted to go ahead and drop the gauntlet with all the negative things first, so that way I could leave it up to you to fill out from there. So, how did you feel about Top Gun Maverick?
So I've actually put as much thought into this as I could, and I can sum it up with 2 words.
Okay.
It is aggressively adequate.
Aggressively adequate.
And I'll explain.
All right. Yeah.
By this, I mean the film was indulging in fan service from the opening scene with text on screen that I come to understand is the exact same text that was in the 1986 original.
Yeah.
And then the music accompanied by pictures of planes taking off on aircraft carriers and the Kenny Loggins song, Danger Zone. Like, I mean, just, no bones about what it was being. It was fancy. It's like, yep, here we go. It managed, however, by the second third to kind of drift into something resembling new ideas. And by the end, it was successful enough in being entertaining. So it was adequate. And I say aggressively adequate because I think they were trying. They really were. It wasn't, did I love this film? Well, no. Did I love the original? No. However, I think they really tried to do something rather than just make a sequel. It's like, here's why we're making the sequel. For example, something I can point to, Tom Cruise. I think he is a good actor, but like a lot of stuff about him can annoy me. And like the cocky Tom Cruise that he can do, which is what Top Gun's all about, like that just annoys me. And so from the trailers I would see for this film, I thought it was going to be, a sequel with him making little clever quips and being put up on a pedestal once again. I mean, the title of this movie, you could think, the way they do the logo is Tom Cruise, Top Gun Maverick. It's like his name is part of the part of the movie. So all that said, but it wasn't that. They did try to humanize Maverick. Not that they didn't in the original, because we all know Goose died. Hello. So that kind of humanized. He made a mistake. Mm-hmm. So, I felt like they at least tried to kind of do something. Now, they started off not doing that, but I think they made an attempt. So I was surprised at how adequate this film was.
Your opinion was a little higher than I expected it to be. A little higher. This is good. Surprising. Even despite, I want to go and get all those negatives out of the way, and those are negatives. Sure. I do feel like the film has some problems.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I had a really good time with this film. I did entertain it. Yes, I'm a fan of the original, so yes, it was catering to me. I knew this. It's almost like you feel like advertisers know who you are and are targeting commercials right to your demographic. They knew who was in the audience. They knew what beats to play to get it. And I will hear it to say it worked. And I don't think I'm alone. I think tons of people, it totally worked
250 million or whatever it made over the week.
Yeah. It totally worked for people.
Sure.
I did really enjoy this film and had a really good time with it. I was pleasantly surprised with how much I did enjoy it, given that every indication would have been that it would not been that great a movie going into it. When the idea was announced and when they kind of kept delaying the film, I just thought, well, that's not a good sign. But I see why now they delayed it. They knew they could bank on the theater attendance and the positive word of mouth if they got into movie theaters.
Well, I think, seeing a movie like this, like you say, because of the plane sequences, I think seeing those on the TV, it's just not going to do it.
Not the same.
You have to see that and hear it.
And see it with the crowd or see it with a group, I think also made a big difference too.
Yeah, there were times when people would laugh together or clap or whatever. So it made
with
audience. I will say too, I mean, I know people are thinking it's all about the money, which, yes, this movie costs money to make. They want to make the biggest bang for their buck, which is having it in the theaters. I will say, too, that I think the timing of coming after the pandemic, when people want something that kind of feels like a hug. People, they want an action movie, but this provided something a little bit more. This wasn't just a Fast and Furious sequel. This was something that they tried to make more, in a way, like a hug and have it mean something, because it had been 36 years. Like, I think that actually helped me be less critical about it, because it was like, a lot of people said, "Oh, this is a movie really worth coming back to the theaters for," and it's just like, this is going to save movie making, and I don't know about all that, but
It's a little stretch.
I can see why, like you said, I can see why they waited. So
I'll point this out. I mean, I trying to get a little more specific with my review here.
Sure.
I mean, I did have a really good time with this. I will admit, first half of the film I thought was pretty shaky.
Okay.
There were times in the film early on where
because it was just a lot of fan service, or okay,
almost too much. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. But the first half for me was a little shaky, because it felt like, okay, we're just repeating plot beats. I thought the dialogue was pretty weak in a lot of places. I thought, some of the characters we were being introduced to really didn't add a lot to the story, and just seemed to be kind of playing out very stereotypical cliches that we needed in the film. So by the time we got to like the bar scene where you're introduced to all the other pilots, that was pretty rough. I'll admit. There was a moment there where I honestly said, "Oh no, I am afraid this film is going to be bad."
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so now granted, you did like this film more than me, but these were times when my expectations were flipped, because I was completely expecting this film to have a beach volleyball scene and to have a bar scene with men singing to ladies and wooing them. Okay. And I didn't get beach volleyball, but I did get beach football. So that not subverted really. However, the scene you just pointed out starts to be a crowd, starts to be this singing piano. And I was like, oh dear.
Oh, you were expecting
Here
another.
we go.
You've lost that loving feeling.
And I was like, I may vomit in my mouth and have to swallow it, because I don't want
That
to
would have
dirty
been
up
too
the theater.
much.
And it wasn't that. And the way they used the expectations in that moment and flipped things, and how Maverick was on the outside looking in, without spoiling it, I was like, you know what? That's kind of that actually impressed me. The movie critic in me said, "Well done."
The way the whole scene ended was good. I think it was more just the introduction of all the pilots coming in. Sure. Like, oh, but we're the best, and who's going to teach us?
And they reveal all their names and all that kind of stuff.
It was a little. It was much. At that point, I remember thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, have I made a mistake by inviting a lot of people to come see this film all as a group, and him here, and I built up so much expectations." But you're right. That scene ultimately did redeem itself. And I think I figured out at that point what they were doing with this film. Okay. I compare it to The Force Awakens, the Star Wars sequel.
Yeah, sure.
The one that came out, the J.J. Abrams one, number 7 in the chapter.
Sure.
It was an enjoyable film, but I think a lot of people kind of walked away saying, yeah, it was great, but it was kind of just doing A New Hope over again. A lot of the same plot beats, a lot of the same structure to it. It was really kind of ultimately the same. It wasn't hit you on the top of the head about it. It wasn't so blatantly obvious, but it was one of those where you walked away, you're like, it was good, but it just kind of felt like they were just relying on a lot of tropes and storylines to work with. Almost like where I felt like The Force Awakens was something that a calculator computer came up with to say, all right, we need to make a film that's going to appeal to the original fans, because the prequels did not as much. Okay, so let's re-rig the calculation and the formula, and now we've made this movie that we think is going to hit all the right moments and key points to affect the original fans of Star Wars. And it generally worked. I think this film is different in that they just said, there's no computer, there's no formula, screw it. We're just doing it all again.
I was surprised at how much footage they showed from the original film, flashback wise.
Yeah.
I was like, that's really interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, this film really just said, you know what? We're just doing it again.
We're just doing it.
We're just doing it. Right. Even if we rip off some of the same dialogue and we use some of the same shots and same sequence, it's okay. We're just going to do it. And they're not being coy about it. They're not being, trying to be subtle or anything. It was truly a, look, we know you like the original. We're going to use a lot of the same plot beats and dialogue and things because we know you're going to like that. Plain and simple. And that's going to make for a fun movie. And that's what we did. So I kind of admire them for that, for being so blasé about it and just making another version of Top Gun that continues the story, but basically the same character arcs and a lot of the same beats to it. But it still worked. So I still had a good time with it.
I'll say too, you talk about how it does hit a lot of the same beats, has a lot of the same characters. Prior to going into the film, I knew that Val Kilmer was somehow going to be integrated in, and I had my questions as to how that was going to be done. The way he was incorporated in the film made me I really admired the way it was done. Kind of made me forgive some of the other callbacks I found irritating. I mean, and overall, all the callbacks they do in this film, they're not that one was really good. The referencing of Val Kilmer and having him in the film, that was really good. Like, to be a film that's built so much on that, something like you mentioned Force Awakens. That's kind of, I kept thinking of No Way Home as Spider-Man, like a film that's built so much on your nostalgia for the Spider-Man films that have come before, and how irritating how you and I both were not very high on that film. Like, this did it, and it was still effectively done. It was still trying to do something new, even with all the callbacks. So I admired it. But what was your take on the Val Kilmer?
No, I did.
Basically, it was a scene. It was well done. But what was your take on that?
I do think it was well done. I think it was. Having him there and knowing, of course, Val Kilmer's own personal health issues and struggles and all, it was kind of poignant to have that. What I liked about the scene, though, is I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything with this. That Maverick sees Iceman as not just a friend, but they treat him almost like a mentor a little bit.
Right.
Which is not, if you thought about the original film, and these two obviously are the adversarial, but they have their moment at the end where they kind of help each other and they're all like buddies at the end. But you see that relationship has progressed.
Sure.
I mean, it is not just, hey, we're just buddies that used to fly together. It's like, Iceman has become extremely successful and kind of well known in the field. Maverick still got his bad boy attitude or whatever, but he just starts to look to Iceman as like, I need some guidance. I need some help. And he really trusts Iceman. I like that dynamic. And it didn't take a whole lot of like somebody to tell me that you could get that from just seeing the two of them talk. I'm like, that was really well done. So I did like that quite a bit. I thought it was well handled. Yeah.
So, overall, I'm aggressively adequate. I give this a pass. If you like the original, you're gonna like this film. There's no way you wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's fair
something
to say.
that I found with all the tweaks they did to Maverick mugging and his bravado. One of the things and I think they did a good job trying to like tweak him and trying not to put him on a pedestal too much. The one thing that I wish they could have found a way to do, which I guess they just can't take that away from Maverick because then he would lose his name, Maverick. He would just be, what is his name? Peter? I don't even know his real name.
Pete Mitchell.
Pete Mitchell. Okay. They'd probably just go back to calling him Pete because they'd be like, you don't deserve Maverick anymore. Maverick is a Maverick. And once they get past the opening montage, it's the same thing. He does something that he breaks the rules and he doesn't care. Okay. So he does that once at the beginning of the film. You're like, okay, this is the same dude he's always been. And doesn't really get any repercussions for it. Now, okay, fine at the beginning of the film. Then 2/3 of the way through the film, he does it again. And I was like, in a way, if they're really trying to show, like, he would finally get like, okay, he would finally get a repercussion for something that he's, other than just being brought into the office and yelled at by a teacher, which is essentially kind of what happens both times. Like, and I understand the reasons, especially the second time when he does it, but still you're just like, yeah, but, if you're really trying to show growth, but that's a minor quote. But I did find myself thinking after the second time, I'm like, really? So basically this dude could just do whatever he wants.
Yeah. It's playing that classic archetype of, yes, there's an authority figure, but everybody, even the people watching the movie, know that the authority figure is wrong. So therefore, we admire and like anybody who's going to fight that authority figure and do something against their rules. Right. And then we feel like they're still going to get rewarded for it because ultimately they were right. And yeah, it's cliche. And it's, I think, a tad overused in this movie. I mean, I think there's 2 or 3 scenes where that same exact thing happens. But then it's like the person reprimanding Maverick still like at the very end being like, but I gotta,
But you're amazing.
but I hate having to do this, but I have to send you back out.
Right.
I mean, I think it absolutely happens twice. It might be a third time in there too. But again, you know, I could look at that and eye roll and say, yeah, it's just, you could look at it as sloppy. Like we need to get Maverick from this place to piloting this place. And then we need to get Maverick from teaching these students to now doing this. And yeah, you could say it's sloppy, but I think it's done with love, and I think it's done with fans in mind, and I think the fans eat it up. I mean, we love it. So
Speaking,
you know, I think it works. Although if I'm looking at this from a purely critical, with no fan service around it, no history, no nostalgia behind it, yeah, it's flimsy. It's pretty weak, and you know, a lot of things you have to take with a grain of salt.
Tacking on to your fans eat it up, if we're going to follow that metaphor. Yeah, I mean, this film is nothing more than a Big Mac. It's not some gourmet meal, but you know, sometimes you just really want a Big Mac.
Yeah, I mean,
and that it's no gourmet meal, but it's a Big Mac. You know what you're getting, and at the end you're like, well, that filled me up. You know, so, yeah.
I can't remember the last time, and granted, I know the pandemic time has kind of shifted our perceptions of time over the last 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely.
I can't remember the last time I saw such a crowd experience where even like my sons are on one side of me, and they're saying that the girl next to them in the seats was like weeping at the end. I saw older people in the theater, which is also kind of interesting to see. We haven't seen that in a long time. People kind of older in life, and they're there, but you know, some of them are wearing T-shirts with Top Gun and blazered on it. I mean, they're doing fist bumps during the film. Now, look, you can wipe away a lot of script and characterizations and other little minor things that we as critics tend to pick apart in a film like this. You can wipe away a lot of those criticisms when you realize that, wow, this is a film that is entertaining large groups of people, getting them to the theater experience and enjoying it as a group. I don't know. There's something kind of special about that. So kudos to Top Gun for pulling it off. I think they did it, and they beat box office predictions. I mean, they're making tons of money. You know, and I walked away with a good time. Did I have some points? I'm like, yeah, you know, I don't buy this, and this didn't work, and I wish this had done differently. But at the end of the day, it's the Big Mac, and the Big Mac was tasty, and it filled me up, and I'm good.
Speaking of, I want to touch on something. I've heard a lot of fans of the original come out and say that this movie has done what they didn't think possible. It surpassed the first one. And they said, I don't want to blaspheme the first, but they think this is a better film. Now, would you say that?
On most aspects. I mean, you know, if I had to rate it on like, you know, a dozen different attributes, on most of them,
or when
yes.
you rate it in Letterboxd.
Right. It is a better looking film. It is a better shot film. The action sequences are definitely even more thrilling. I think, you know, when it comes to like, you know, acting, it's the same. I mean, there's no real difference. Story, because not really that different.
Sure.
But I think technically, yes, it is a better film. Technically, it's put together in a package that is a much more rousing film. Top Gun, the original, is a rousing film. But this one, I don't know, something about, especially in that final 30 minutes, it puts together a package that you come out. I mean, people next to me were, you know, breathless. I mean, they're saying they're just like, you know, my heart rate was going up during the film, and it was thrilling. And then it was just such a relief at the end when you know, how it wraps up. So I think that works. I think that emotional side of it works so much better in this film than the original. So,
Got you.
Yeah. So yeah, I do think it's better than the original.
I thought it was also an achievement that Maverick manages one of the cleanest airplane hangars I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
And he's designed an oil repellent white undershirt that never regardless of working on planes and stuff, it's just
true.
immaculate.
Yeah,
so
yeah. He needs
impressive.
a patent for that. So
Yeah,
he needs
clearly.
to market that. Yeah. I mean, we have even mentioned, and this has already gone on a little longer than we thought, I think. But
It's Top Gun Maverick. It's going to be bigger, better, stronger.
we didn't talk about Jennifer Connelly as the love interest. And look, she's playing another cookie cutter character that doesn't have tons of backstory to her.
But there's
but she was good.
She was good.
I mean, she was good, and I did enjoy her presence in the film. And I personally think she made for a better match for Maverick than maybe the one in the first film. McGillis did, yeah. Okay. I like the fact that these two have had a history. They didn't have to go and spend any, like, we didn't have flashbacks to see them. It's just, you just get a sense of who they were from their interactions. And I thought that was handled nicely. I gotta call out one last scene I thought was impressive.
Okay.
So just like you were about ready to groan if you thought they were going to break into You Lost That Loving Feeling singing at the bar.
Yes.
I was about to be a little groan worthy when Maverick and Penny, the Jennifer Connelly character, were kind of having a date and ended up back at her house. And I thought, okay, here we go. Here's the obligatory love scene.
Right.
But it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And it treats it in a very mature level, which is Penny's got a daughter and they're both, older, and they're trying not to rattle the daughter with this thing. So, Maverick has to try to slip out of the house. It's just, I'm like, oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Let's take this to another level. Let's make this a more mature where they are in life instead of it just being spit swapping on screen for another 3 or 4 minutes to like a pop song. So,
and I thought that's when the Lady Gaga song was going to come.
Yeah, the Lady Gaga song didn't show up until the very end.
The very end.
Yeah. So I thought that was I thought that was a nice choice, a nice decision made, and I like that a lot. Miles Teller, we didn't mention that, as Rooster.
Son of Goose.
I did not care for any of the other pilots in general. I mean, I thought they were all fairly bland, unfortunately.
I mean,
but I did think Miles Teller was good. I liked him as Goose, or not Goose, as Rooster.
I thought Hangman was a good enough surrogate for Iceman. I mean,
he was. I mean, I felt like he was over the top, but I think that was very intentional. I think they wanted him to be as mustache twirling looking.
Glenn Powell, the actor's name.
I think they wanted him to be the absolute epitome of Iceman as much as possible.
Right.
And I thought he was a little over the top dialogue wise, but I think Miles Teller was good.
Yeah.
I liked him a lot. I think he was able to carry the anger he still held. I think he was able to portray yes, he's a well-liked guy and he's a good pilot, but there's enough insecurities there that he's still dealing with, and it managed it well. So
sure.
Yeah. Overall, I did have a really good time with the film. I liked it a lot, much better than the original in my book. I'd be happy to see it again. I've been able to look over the plot contrivances and some of the conveniences in the script and some of the dialogue that wasn't always as fleshed out as I would like for it to be. But overall, it was a very, very enjoyable experience. So for me, and sound like a little better than you expected.
Yes, it was better than what I expected.
That's good.
Not being a fan of the original, really. Yeah. I thought this was just going to be one groan after the other, and it wasn't.
So. You had minor groans in it, so that's not bad.
Right.
All right. Well, that is Top Gun Maverick. It is still playing in theaters. It probably will be for a while. It's one of those that I got a feeling it's going to have a long box office life.
I think so.
I think it's kind of pulling the Titanic model of, it's going to start strong and word of mouth that just people are just going to go back and see it again and keep it going. And it's reaching out to all demographics, more than most other films.
It's PG-13. 13. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's, and it's, comes out this summer. It seems like the perfect when it gets hot outside, like, okay, too hot. I don't even want to go to the pool. Let's go to the theater.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that is Top Gun Maverick. Now, Chris, let's move on to our second review and let's talk about the latest film from director Alex Garland, starring Jesse Buckley and Rory Kinnear. It is Men.
You're tormented.
It feels more like...
Haunted.
Yeah.
Alex Garland, director of Ex Machina and Annihilation, had his latest film hit theaters May 20th. The reaction to Men has been mixed. The folk horror film for May 24 follows a recently widowed young woman, Harper Marlowe, who's played by Jesse Buckley, who goes on a holiday in the English countryside only to find herself disturbed by the men in the community. Alan, what was your experience with Men?
So I'm not big on horror films. You and I have talked about this. We're not big horror buffs. I mean, we don't actively seek out horror, but we do like well-crafted, well-made, a little more interesting, artsy, art-related or psychological horror type of thing.
Sure.
So I'll admit, I went to a theater. I thought I was going to be by myself in this theater watching it. I did go see it in the middle of the day just because I'm like, I just want to kind of watch it in a safe environment, a safe time of day. So I can talk about this film in two ways.
Okay.
One is as a quote horror film.
Okay.
Then there's the as a Alex Garland film.
Sure.
There's two angles
He
to
has
it.
his kind of mood or...
That's right. We talked about
take and
Ex
stuff.
Machina. We had Annihilation, as two films that he's made that both are ones that you find yourself talking about. Annihilation especially. There's a lot to process and digest
Right.
with that film. So talking about this first and foremost as a genre horror pick, I thought it was really effective. I mean, I thought this film was creepy. I thought it was scary at the right moments. I thought it was kept you at the edge of your seat for better or for worse. I think Alex Garland has in my mind, he knows how to show you on screen what he wants to show you on screen, and there's nothing more and nothing less. It's not about jump scares. It's not about, in this film, it's not about how to intentionally scare people. It's just putting you in an environment where you're not sure what's happening next and anything is possible around you or in the scene. And I think he just does a really good job with that. So as a horror film, I thought it was pretty effective.
Okay.
As an Alex Garland film, I liked Ex Machina.
Okay.
Jury's still out for me on Annihilation. I'm still processing that film after all this time. There was a lot to digest there.
Got you.
But this might be my favorite of his films.
Wow. Okay.
I really liked what he was doing with this story. I liked what he did with the framing of the film. There's a lot of stuff to go into that would be spoilery, so I don't want to deal too much. And even the last 20 minutes, which I know a lot of people have talked about online, and it's either going to make or break your experience with the film. Mm-hmm. I dig it. I get it. I feel like I have an understanding of what the message is in this film, and I think it's an interesting one. And I love the fact that he was able to do this with using almost like a Cronenberg kind of body horror sequences. I mean, it gets really,
specifically
really...
the last 20 minutes with
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Sure.
The last 20, 30 minutes of the film are very graphic.
Yeah, I think he could give Cronenberg a run for his money.
Absolutely.
In those last 20 minutes.
The
or so,
whole sequence.
Yeah. Agreed.
It started out shocking enough, and then it got more shocking as it went along, and it was just, wow, okay. I dig it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was great. It got me thinking and talking and wanting to have somebody to talk about it with afterwards. I mean, but to couch it in what you could see on the surface as a horror film, and it did have enough moments of that to be generally creepy in my mind. I thought it really worked. I really liked it. I mean, I like Ex Machina.
Sure.
This one just worked. It hit all the right marks for me, and I'm digging, still thinking about it. So, cool. Chris, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, I'll say just, if we do a very surface level, because you've hit some interesting things and we'll delve deeper, but, and you've given a preliminary ranking or whatever in your head. I guess this would probably actually rank third for me out of Alex Garland's films.
Okay.
For me, the pacing of the film wasn't necessarily off-putting because it was like, okay, you get into it, you're like, oh, this is going to be a slow-paced film, which I was not expecting. I don't think of him as a slow-paced director. I mean, third film, major film. But it willingly meanders to the point of wandering off through some beautiful forest scenery, kind of got me a little sleepy. But then we get to a tunnel scene, which is shown in the preview, with an echo call and response, which, interestingly enough, in the trailer is shown as something really creepy and hard. But in the film seems to be a moment where Harper, Jessie Buckley, actually has a little bit of this is really cool. I'm actually kind of having fun doing this thing. You know, like I think she may even smile.
Oh, she does. No, she's enjoying doing it. Yeah.
And then at that point, things shift into another gear because at the moment she has fun, her echoing call and response thing causes something to then stalk her, basically. And I thought that was really interesting. And the final 20 minutes go from like maybe second gear all the way into like fifth gear, you know? Yeah. And it really kind of brings home the whole point the film's been trying to do, which I have to say, Garland usually, which is why I really like Annihilation. It would probably be a tough one between which is my favorite between Annihilation and Ex Machina. I like both those films a lot. Maybe what would give Annihilation the edge is the fact that, there's so much to process. You say you're still processing it. And if I start to try to think about it or try to explain it, I'll still process it. With Men, interesting, kind of a standout for Garland is, the title of the film's Men. Mm-hmm. What do we think this film is about? About men and how they can be toxic. There again, it's kind of in the title. This is unique, I feel like, among his filmography because the message is very clear from the opening shots. Everything that happens in the film, you're like, no, I see what he's doing here. Yeah. It's very much a film of the Me Too era. But then the way he okay, in case you don't get it, I'm going to really make it blatantly obvious by what I do in those last 20 minutes. And to me, that was such a creative way to kind of drive that point. And granted, it's very upsetting. It's very but it really drives it
again,
home.
I'm going to do this without spoiling.
Sure.
But I think where it takes the theme that you're right, we had already gathered kind of the theme of this toxic masculinity and kind of this idea of men and their relationship with women.
Right.
And you get, we didn't really mention that, the film is kind of framed by this idea that, the reason Harper visits this English countryside manor or as on a solo vacation is because her boyfriend, or actually, I guess husband, they were breaking up. It was never clear if it was husband or boyfriend. They were breaking up. Or was it a divorce?
I think the word divorce may have been
You're right.
separate.
I think it was actually a marriage.
Yeah.
And he has died right after she had given the intention of breaking up with him. Unclear whether it was a suicide or a death to her. Now, I'm saying to her. Now, I know what it was, but to her, she was still uncertain whether it was a suicide or a failed attempt to come get to her. That's part of what's going on, and that kind of sets up the whole scene she has with the vicar later at the church, because she's still questioning how much fault she felt, like if she had any fault at what happened to him.
Okay, yeah, I feel like it was definitely a suicide. Now, whether or not she
I don't know.
Whether or not she's letting herself have blame for it, I don't. Yes, I think that is something that she's definitely
throughout the course of the movie,
with.
I think by the end it does resolve it. I think by the end we're kind of clear that it was a suicide.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I never felt like it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think even she is even when she's talking to her friend, it's like into the vicar, she's like, I don't know. I don't know if when I saw his eye. Anyway, it's not 100% clear.
I see.
But it is by the end of the film, I think.
Right.
But all that being said, she's processing a lot of this. She's dealing with this, and that's part of her reason for getting away. What the ending of the film does in this whole sequence is not just highlight the fact that there is men who take advantage of their position and their power, but to almost show it as a this has gone on for generations. Mm-hmm. But it has evolved to the point where now her now dead husband, you kind of see the current state of that toxic masculinity. All right. I mean, I could talk about it. I love just the way, it started at almost a very primal level, and there's violence and there's abuse, but then it starts to morph into I think
people insinuate things.
Yes, and gaslighting, kind of this idea of it turns into more, and it's more of a feeble attempt that men are trying to have to gain control. And I love the fact that this whole sequence kind of illustrates that and shows that in a way that just shows you, okay, yeah, this is what we're ending up with now. This is the kind of tactics that some men are using to keep their power, and they're doing it, quote, in the name of love. Mm-hmm. And I think that was just really interesting, that whole picture that it weaved together in a very disturbing, graphic way in that last 20 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was shocking. Like we said, kind of a David Cronenberg kind of body horror type of situation. But at the end of the day, when you're finished that final scene, it's like, okay, yeah, I get it, which was rewarding for me because I haven't always felt that way after an Alex Garland film. So to be able to sit at the end and be like, oh yeah, okay,
right,
I get this one. I think
that was what's so surprising. Like I was saying, it kind of sets it apart is for the most part, like, yeah, he's telling you what he's trying to do. He's making it pretty obvious. And at the end, you're like, okay, yeah, I got it. Now, that being said, without spoiling anything, the concluding shot and image of the film, I feel like may leave some people disappointed because considering what they've seen on Spool beforehand, I wasn't surprised. But do you think some people will be like, wait, like, I guess you're
talking about the shot like right after the credits have started rolling and then we cut to a shot outside of the manor.
Yes. With
the friend.
Yes.
Okay.
A friend arriving.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so like, does that leave you to think all in her head or there was something there? Or do we not know?
I can dance around this and just say, just given what even the friend sees and reacts to, I don't think it was all in the head.
Okay.
But that's just me.
Okay.
I think it's meant to obviously be very interpretive, how you want to handle it. And the fact that the friend emerged, well, the state she was in when she emerged out of her car and you see the state she's in,
right.
It just kind of all feeds itself. It all works. So,
okay.
I'll call it a couple specific
Sure.
things. I mean, we've talked about the theme a lot, and I think the theme and kind of the storytelling for me really worked. But even going back to the whole horror side, to kind of make a film that was marketed and kind of has those elements of horror throughout a good running time, part of the running time. The use of sounds throughout the film.
Sound design was excellent.
Motion sensor lights. I'll tell you what, it was probably the most effective use of motion sensor lights in a horror film I think I've seen. And it got to the point where you're watching something and it's just that tension where you know the lights are going to go off. You just don't know when. And you don't know when they're going to spring back up. And
right.
I love that whole motif behind it.
Right.
The tunnel echo sounds and how those sounds are kind of used throughout the rest of the film. That was really great. I got to talk about Jesse Buckley, very, very good as Harper, but Rory Kinnear as, we'll just say as Jeffrey.
Yeah.
It's in the trailer. I mean, you see that there are other characters that Rory's involved.
Right.
Not going to say to what extent or to what detail, but he has a more complex role than just maybe the one that's shown with the speaking parts in the trailer. And yeah, he was really good. I know I've seen him in a lot of small parts and different things, but I don't think I've actually seen him in a really major role in a film. And he was good. He was very good. He had a lot to do in this film. He had a lot to pull off.
And his character definitely wasn't one note.
Oh, no.
Leave it at that. But yeah.
And just, what he had to kind of go through in that last 20, 30 minutes in general too was impressive. I will say one little thing. I mean, this is such a nitpick, but there is a scene that involves kind of a CGI face on a body that just did not work. And I think, I don't know what it was, but it kind of took me out for a little bit because the film was I felt so natural, lived in and real. But then we get to the scene with a CGI face on a younger boy's body, and it didn't work. But again, and that's a technical thing. It wasn't from the theme or the storytelling. It was just the technical side of it.
Well, and
was a little rough.
And I understand what you're saying, and I see it, and I can say that I feel like it was something that Garland had in the script, and it was like, it is going to stay. It is going to happen. Yeah. It's important for me to show that because I want to show the width and breadth of all men.
Yeah.
And so to do that, he wanted to use a younger thing. And I feel like he was just like, I feel like in a way that could play into, which is also part of the film, and I feel like very intentional. That's why I wanted to mention that all in her head, or is this really happening? Because that's one of the themes of the movie is, oh, you're just making this up, or
right.
oh, you're just
Sure.
saying that. And so at that moment, the viewer's like, wait a second, is this really what's going on? Like, but I think, so in a way I could see how that actually was, I'm not saying the director thought it was intentional, but how like weird and kind of off-putting or whatever, like kind of the point in a sense.
So I did not read anything about the film beforehand.
Okay.
But I have read some articles since watching it yesterday.
Oh, really?
And I did
Okay.
actually read a little bit of a discussion with Alex Garland about the film. And the one question he kind of posed, which I thought was a good way to look at it. I think somebody asking about how much, if this was truly in the main character's head or if it was real.
Okay.
And the fact that Rory Kinnear, you see him in multiple instances and faces in different places. And Garland kind of made the comment saying, well, is it that Harper
Yes.
sees all of these men in the same way, even though nobody else does? So in other
Right.
words, that was all her vision.
Right.
Or is it that the message is that, yes, in this situation, all men are the same. And it's like, it could go either way.
Right.
And it's like, it's her perception of men versus the world's perception of men.
Right.
And you could kind of play the angle either side of it. And I think, it's true. It works. Anyway, I did really like this film.
Yeah, I guess interesting, which sometimes can be the case. The more I think about it and the more we've been sitting here discussing it, I appreciate it more. And I think my problem was coming out of the film was that it was just all kind of really simplistic because there wasn't really a lot hidden there. But the more you dig deep into it, the more you can see, well, there's not a lot more going on. Men are bad. Men can be very bad. And men can belittle women, and men can be very toxic in their masculinity. But the ways that the layers of how he was trying to show that, I guess, are more creative than can appear at first, maybe.
Well, yeah. And even kind of expanding on a little bit of that dialogue with Garland, I was saying, I think to kind of expand on that, it's like, okay, so if you could look at it as a very simplistic story, it's a very simplistic idea and themes that it's conveying on. But if you dig a little deeper, okay, so is Harper seeing these men as all the same, even though the rest of the world does not, and she's being distorted by her own most recent experience with her husband? Mm-hmm. Or is it that the rest of the world sees these men as the same, but Harper doesn't? Because Harper never comments on the fact that, hey, it's kind of interesting, or never makes a comment to her friend or anything about, you know what, all these guys that kind of all look the same. It's like she doesn't recognize it. So is it something where the rest of the world is that, and that Harper doesn't want to admit or see that, or she truly doesn't just at all? It does start to pose a lot of questions about, there's no doubt the film is obviously an indictment of men abusing their power and abusing their position over the generations. But where we are today, is it that most men are still like that, but yet sometimes the women that they're affecting don't see that or recognize that? Or is it that they are seeing it and maybe it's a little stereotypical, it's assuming all men are the same way, even though they are not. So anyway,
Sure.
there's a lot going on there. There's a lot, which I love. I love those kind of questions afterwards. So, all right. Well, you got anything else to add on that?
I'll say something else, and I think it's probably obvious to anybody who watches the film, but I thought it was a clever kind of breadcrumb, and not that you really need it because the loaf of bread is sitting out there the whole time for you to see kind of what's going on. But, and without spoiling anything, there's a mirroring of an event of severing damage that I found to be really interesting as a breadcrumb. Mm-hmm. One is a result of a spike on a fence, and the other is a result of a knife blade.
Yes.
But both very, and it's like a callback to something. And I thought that was really interesting.
Well, there were two elements that were kind of carried through, and like you said, the one is the with a hand and a slicing, and then there's also a foot, kind of a broken type of thing. And what I love the fact is, yes, as different. God, this is tough to really without going and just being very detailed about it.
Right.
Iterations of people that she encountered.
Yes.
We're still carrying on those same, what do you call them? Injuries. Those same things.
Sure.
So just again, kind of showing that it's holding on to ways that men have felt wronged and using that as a weapon in a way. Mm-hmm. So it's continued on.
Yeah, sure.
Generation through generation. So yeah, I like that. That was very interesting as well. Very gory and disturbing.
Yes.
But well done. So, okay. Well, that is Men by director Alex Garland. It might not be playing at many theaters by the time you hear this recording, because it was already kind of stretching it for a second weekend at our local movie theater. But we both are recommending checking it out. Although Chris, being a fan of Alex Garland's film, is still saying it's his third favorite of the three. I like it probably the most, just because I think it just had a lot more going on to talk about, and that I understood it. So that always is that's always a nice benefit to it if I can do that. All right, well, that is Men, and then of course we followed up our review of Top Gun Maverick. So, Chris, how about let's take a quick little break. We come back. We've got some trailers to kind of talk about, some new movie trailers that have come out, about some films coming up soon. And then we also have our recommendations to make for this episode. So we will be right back with Foot Candle Films. Stay tuned.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv. Alan Jackson, Chris Fry with you here. We had our reviews of the film Top Gun Maverick and Men, our masculinity themed episode for this week. Both from a good and bad standpoint.
Yeah.
We're both positive on Maverick, well, at least Top Gun Maverick. I was very positive. Chris was more positive than expected, which is a plus, I think, for that film with him. And with Men, we're both positive, but I think they could probably even get a little bit more out of it than Chris did, which was interesting as well.
Yeah.
So I am more positive on both of these films today.
So.
Nice. Okay. Well, Chris, we've talked about films that are out now, but let's shift our attention to films that are going to be coming out soon.
Okay.
This is the part of the show where we play some bits of trailers, film trailers, and then talk about kind of what the trailer is promising for us or letting us expect for the future. We call it trailer tapas because you get a little morsel, a little taste of a film through a trailer. So Chris, you got a few lined up I think you want to share with us. So what do you got?
So, and I'm going to do them in increasing order of my excitement about them.
Okay.
That's the plan. So let's start off with Don't Worry, Darling.
Okay, this is Don't Worry, Darling, directed by Olivia Wilde and starring Florence Pugh and Harry Styles, correct?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
I have it.
Focus right here.
Have a little drink. Yeah, I will.
Now, baby, don't cast my You and me.
Always. You and me.
Okay, so that was the trailer for Don't Worry, Darling. That's the second film by Olivia Wilde. She did Booksmart, I think, is her first film, I believe.
I think you're correct with that, yeah. So quite a departure in like style,
very different.
tone, everything.
Where Booksmart, or not, yeah, Booksmart was kind of a little more on the indie, kind of low budget comedy, but, meant to be, didn't really focus too much on stylistic choices or I don't think really big director choices.
Right.
This film, very, very, very different. What's your thoughts?
So, with the actors involved, I'm interested. But I have to say, to me, now granted, I haven't seen it because it's just a trailer. It looks like Westworld and mashed up with like the Stepford Wives. So I don't really know that there's going to be any surprises, I guess, maybe because of how the trailer was formulated. I feel like I kind of already know. Yeah. I feel like it's kind of been ruined for me, but I will see it because it looks visually interesting. The performances are there. But I don't know. I feel like it just looks like a mashup of already explored themes in Stepford Wives with the technology kind of aspects and vast landscape thing of like Westworld, the show, the series. So
I saw this trailer again. I've seen it a couple times, but I saw it in the movie theater yesterday, and I immediately went ahead and put on my calendar September 23rd as the release date. I'm like, okay, yep, I'm on board. Let's check this out. I like Florence Pugh. I like Harry Styles. And then we got Chris Pine also playing what seems to be a kind of a community leader, kind of a big figure that everybody looks to. I love the stories that have to do with whether it's cults or whether it's kind of these isolated communities. I think those are always interesting. The trailer definitely makes this look very, very good. We'll see when the film comes out. But I'm kind of curious to see what, as Olivia Wilde as the director, is kind of doing expanding her role and vision a little bit more. So it's tagged as a psychological thriller / horror. So we will certainly see where that goes from here. That's coming out September 23rd. Don't worry, darling. All right, great. What do we got next, Chris?
So next up, we have a film called Hustle, which stars Adam Sandler and will be coming to Netflix. And all
right. Already you've said two phrases that would normally get me very worried.
Right.
Starring Adam Sandler, premiering on Netflix. Okay. Already we've had like 3 or 4 of those movies that I have avoided. I think you might have caught up with 1 or 2 of them in the past. And
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
So let's listen or watch a little bit of the trailer. Get some thoughts on it.
Okay. Here we go. The trailer for Hustle.
Taking me to see basketball or bare knuckle boxing? We do everything.
I'm Stanley Sugarman. I'm a scout for the 76ers.
So you're 22 years old because you can't be in the draft if you're over 22.
Yes, I'm 22 years old.
Who's this?
It's my son.
How old is he?
He's 10 years old.
Okay.
This Philly thing. There's room to grow there. I want to coach someday.
Do you love being away from home all the time?
Best chance to win in here is with you out there.
What the hell am I still chasing this for?
So you're just going to give up on your journey?
Mm-hmm. Okay, Alan, that was the trailer for Hustle. It is rated R, coming to Netflix, starring Adam Sandler. Mm-hmm. Sports movie, but it does have the pedigree of LeBron James as an executive producer, so you feel like there's going to be some cred in there. Thoughts?
So I like my sports movies. Other than Hoosiers, I don't think there's been a really good basketball movie that I can say I really enjoy.
Teen Wolf?
Yeah, I guess you could say Teen Wolf is a sports adjacent movie. So this could be really good, or it could be really bad. I feel like the trailer's already
too sugary a little bit.
I feel like the trailer's already probably given away way too much of the storyline. We kind of know where this is going. If it goes completely saccharine and sugary sweet, yes, it won't be anything at the end of the day. I don't feel like, but it could surprise. It could turn out. I mean, it depends on where the story takes it. And I think a lot of it's going to hinge on Adam Sandler's performance too. Yeah. I mean, he's a hit or miss actor. We've talked about him a lot of times. We've seen some things we love him in.
Uncut
Gems, the Meyerowitz stories. Mm-hmm. There's a couple other movies. I mean, Punch Drunk Love. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's done good stuff.
His dramatic turns tend to be more rewarding. We feel like a lot of times with the comedy stuff, he can do comedy, but maybe it's just dialed in at this point.
But this is interesting because this is the first role I can remember him playing where he's not going indie, odd, unique character.
Right.
And he's not doing crass, broad comedy character. He seems to be doing a very real character, like a more real human being where
a grounded.
Yeah. Exactly. Uncut Gems. I'm just saying that was kind of a very extreme character, very different from his persona. Meyerowitz stories, he was kind of in that same, but got to play a little quirky and kind of in that sandbox. This to me is like, oh no, I'm just playing a real dude, a real guy, a coach who, and we'll see. It could be really good or it could be junk.
Sure.
I just don't know at this point. Yeah, to me, the biggest thing is, is it going to surprise me at all, or is it going to be beat by beat,
Like
paint by numbers, exactly what we're expecting?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. All right. Interesting. So now we have a third one, correct?
Yes. And if you follow along, this is the third. This is I'm most excited about this film. It is called Brian and Charles.
All right. Here we go.
I never thought I'd make anything as amazing as Charles.
You built my body.
I built his body. My name's Brian. This is my infamous inventions pantry. It's actually a cowshed. Things went a bit topsy-turvy in my life and I was very alone. Fiddlesticks. That's when I just started making stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was the trailer for Brian and Charles. Obviously, Alan, I'm excited about this film. I feel like people who have listened to the show long enough can be like, yep, this seems like a film that Chris Fry would like. It's kind of Wes Anderson in some aspects, but the humor is more Taika Waititi, which a Taika Waititi-Wes Anderson collaboration to me would be amazing. So I'm on board with this film. I think it looks funny. It appeals to me. Alan, what are your thoughts after seeing the trailer?
Yeah, no, I'm on board. I think this looks great. Just because I know people are listening on audio on this, you may not quite follow the plot line of what these trailers are, but
sure.
This is about a gentleman named Brian who kind of is in a deep depression, doesn't have anybody to talk to, kind of isolated, and he ends up building himself a robot. And obviously from the course of the trailer, you see that they have some encounters and adventures along the way. I think this looks great. I think this could be wildly entertaining. Reminds me a little bit tone-wise and style-wise, kind of the Hunt for the Wilder People, mentioning Taika Waititi.
Sure.
A little bit heartwarming, but yet funny and eclectic as well. It'd be interesting to see how this all comes together with this. I'm excited about it. So
one of the things you could be concerned about, which, now I'd only seen the trailer once. Now I've watched it again with you, so I've seen it twice. You can fear that everything that's really good you just saw in the trailer.
There's a little bit of concern with that.
Sure.
And I know it's slated as kind of a filmed almost like a mockumentary in a way. Even like the beginning of the trailer is kind of Brian addressing the camera and talking like a documentary is being made. I don't know if that's something they're going to keep as a motif the whole film, or if it's, I don't know. And you're right. We may have seen all the really good parts of the trailer, but I'm interested. Hey, I'll put up there as a note. It is going to be rated PG, like PG.
Wow.
No PG-13, nothing else.
Which there again, if they can pull that off, that makes it all the more amazing too, that it's actually a funny film that is a PG film that you can show to broader audiences. Yeah. Interesting.
And supposedly played really well at Sundance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, no, I'm on board. I'm excited. I think this looks interesting. Looks like a good future screening for our film society too, hopefully as an option. It comes out June 17th.
Okay.
Is the date on that. So it comes out here in just a couple of weeks. Hustle comes out on Netflix. Let's see if I've got a date for that. I don't have a date of when it comes out on Netflix. I don't know.
This year though, definitely
this year. Here it is. June 8th.
Okay.
So it comes out next week at the time of this recording.
Sure.
Now, Don't Worry, Darling is September. So
Okay.
that one is a little further out. But Hustle here is in June, and Brian and Charles, I'm sure will be limited theater release in different places, but I don't know if it's going to be available online pretty soon afterwards or not. Don't know.
Interesting.
Okay, good. 3 interesting films I think we need to keep tabs on. I'm looking forward to all 3 of them. I will watch Hustle just out of curiosity and see how it comes together. I do have a Netflix subscription. I like basketball. I like Adam Sandler when he does something that's not broad, dumb comedy. So we'll see what happens. Gotcha. All right. Great. Well, that was our trailer tapas or news section of the show. So Chris, I guess it's time to kind of go to the final section, which is where we do our recommendations. We each have a recommendation to make that we think people ought to check out, and a film that we had a chance to revisit or maybe see for the first time, and we want to share as a good recommendation for others. So Chris, you kind of took all the trailers there, so I'll go ahead and do mine.
Absolutely.
Chris, you and I, we make it a point not to see a lot of movies together that we're going to review because, just like with Top Gun Maverick, I think that we want to try to go into our reviews with not really knowing each other's opinions, and we can kind of talk it out here on the microphones. Mm-hmm. I've had the, whether it's pleasure or privilege or whatever you call it, to see 2 films with you in just the last week.
Okay,
one of them was Top Gun Maverick, which we've talked about earlier in the show. The other one was one that we watched at a little outdoor screening, a film that was picked out that has always been one of my favorites, and we kind of were watching it with a group. It was The Natural by Barry Levinson, starring Robert Redford. It's a 1983 film, I believe, 3 or 4. And it's a baseball movie, so talking about sports movies, talking about hustle. This is kind of where it comes from for me. Baseball is an interesting sport for me. I'm not the biggest fan of watching actual baseball, but I love baseball movies. So I think maybe the fact that you can boil a game down to like a really fun montage, and I always enjoy that with a baseball game.
Sure.
But this is a story, The Natural, is of a middle-aged unknown who kind of seems to come out of nowhere to become a legendary baseball player with a huge amount of talent. But there's some backstory to the character. You learn of, as a younger player, he's on his ways to the big leagues to get recruited and ran into some interesting drama along the way that sidelined him for almost 15 or 16 years. So now he comes back. He's Robert Redford. He's playing an older player that is kind of looked down upon by coaching staff and players until you learn that no, the guy's really good. He's a natural. Mm-hmm. It is I feel like a beautifully shot film. I think it looks really, really great. We made the mistake of watching the director's cut of the film the other night, which I don't recommend because I feel like the film is already the right length with the original. I think the director's cut just made it longer and added a lot of scenes that didn't need to be there, and I think kind of spoon-fed you a lot more information than you needed to have to enjoy the film. So I would definitely say look for the original theatrical version if you can find it somewhere, because it is a slow movie. I mean, it is a slow-paced film. It is a 2-hour and whatever minute film. To add more fluff to it with the director's cut, I just think kind of hurt it at the end. I still think, I hadn't seen it in quite a while. I still think it's a beautiful, well done film. Very enjoyable for me. Yes, it does lean into some of the sports movie cliches quite a bit, but I think it wears it on its sleeve, and I think it earns it in most cases.
But it was also doing it back in the 80s, so this
true.
is kind of setting some of the cliches.
That's true. That's true. So. You're right. Some of the things were like, this is like the film that started.
Right.
Some of the idea of, oh, hey, let's have them hit the ball in slow motion and really make it dramatic to do it. I mean, I'm sure there were slow motion shots before 1983, but
this was before Zack Snyder. So
absolutely, it was before Zack Snyder. You're right.
So yeah.
So The Natural by Barry Levinson is still one of my favorites, and I love it. And having a chance to watch it again recently reassured me that yes, I do love a lot of the moments of this film.
It was a fun film to watch on the Memorial Day weekend because it's like baseball, America, apple pie. So that made it fun. I had seen it before, but not in a long time, and I remember my feelings for the original because I had watched the original cut that you're talking about originally, and I definitely would agree that stick with that if you can find it because I think it helps with the pacing and everything. And the director's cut, while good, I think the original cut is probably the way to go. So
yeah, no, it definitely is. So I definitely would recommend not. I mean, unfortunately, online right now, if you were to rent the movie or buy it, I think the director's cut's the only one I could find anywhere. So it might be a little bit of a challenge to find the original theatrical one, but definitely one to check out. Yeah, it was a fun. Well, what about you, Chris? What do you have to recommend this week?
So, we've talked, in our review of Top Gun Maverick, it was, Top Gun Maverick coming out 36 years after the original. And what did it manage to do? Well, it did some okay things. So I'm going to recommend Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So their tagline is, it's not a reboot, it's a comeback. So the story is decades since their successful television series was canceled. Chip has succumbed to a life of suburban domesticity as an insurance salesman. Dale, meanwhile, has had CGI surgery and works the nostalgia convention circuit, desperate to relive his glory days. Who's voicing these people? Andy Samberg and John Mulvaney. Who's directing it? Somebody else from the Lonely Island crew, Akiva Schaffer. I had heard that they were doing this. I saw it pop up on Disney Plus, which is, if you have a subscription, you can stream it for free. And I was like, you know what? Let's check this out. Asked my wife to check. She's like, I'm sorry, we're going to watch
What are we watching again?
Are you kidding? Like Stranger Things has come out. Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to do what? We're going to watch Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. I was like, yeah, let's just give it a shot. Watched it, and I paused it at one point halfway through. She had to get up and like get something to drink. And I was like, I could not be liking this movie more.
Wow.
Imagine kind of an update in a way of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this is. I really, really liked it. Is it a perfect film? No. Is it going to be up for Oscars? No. But as far as like, if you want to take something and reference it and know that what you're doing and really being self-aware the whole time, I just think this is great. I'll say too, kind of impressive. I mean, this is a Disney product that they take the shots that they do at themselves. Because Disney usually, I feel like, is kind of bulletproof, where they don't really mess with their properties, or they're too worried about franchises, Marvel, Star Wars, to kind of be self-critical. But they take a shot at one of their kind of like legendary characters, I'll say, that I was kind of surprised, and made them not appealing or attractive. And I don't want to ruin who it is.
Right.
But I was like, whoa, I'm kind of surprised they're doing that. And it's the Roger Rabbit aspect, because it is a combination of animation and real life people like walking around, kind of how Roger Rabbit did that. And they have aspects from different franchises that are not Disney that they got rights to, that they put into this thing.
Wow.
So,
well, let me ask a very sophisticated question here.
Sure.
If I am not privy to Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, in other words, I was too old for that. I never saw any of these shows or any of the cartoons. Will it be as enjoyable, or do you need to have that prior knowledge?
See, and I think that's how, as good as I think this thing is, I think that's why it got dumped on Disney Plus and not released theatrically, because it is a very niche film. Yeah. I am not sure if you don't really know the whole Rescue Rangers thing, because I did. I remember watching episodes of it when I would come home from school. I was probably a little bit too old. I was a dork.
Yeah, I'm a couple years older than you, so I think that it must have just missed that window.
But yeah, the callbacks that they do to the series and stuff, I think there's enough in here that you would appreciate it without that. I'd be interested to see your mileage with this film.
Well, look, I like John Mulaney. I like Andy Samberg. I like the whole Lonely Island crew. So yes, all the talent involved, I'm super on board, and I like the premise of it. I like the conceit of it. I just curious if it's going to be a lot of more in jokes, a lot more comments about the cartoon that I will not understand.
Let's say, like, I think your appreciation would only be enriched if you get a lot of the in jokes, but I think there's enough here that you don't have to be.
Okay.
I definitely think there's, because like, the kids, I think kids would enjoy this, but it might fly right over their head because they're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I think it's worth checking out. So
we have The Natural, and we have Chip and Dale
Rescue Rangers. Yes.
That is the official name of the film.
That is the official name.
It is on Disney Plus.
Yes.
The Natural is available for rent. I don't think it's really streaming anywhere. I think Crackle was the only place we found that was streaming it.
Right.
Otherwise, you'd have to buy it and get a downloaded copy of the film. Okay, interesting. So overall, interesting episode, Chris. Yeah. We had reviews of Top Gun Maverick and of Men. We had our discussion of 3 very interesting and very diverse trailers of films that will be making their way to the multiplex in the coming months, or in the case of Hustle, at least to Netflix Online. And then our recommendations, The Natural and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. So, Chris, a lot to process from this week's episode. A lot of people probably have some very different opinions or comments or questions about anything we discussed. How can they go ahead and get a hold of us if they do want to dialogue about anything we talked about today?
You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can follow us on Twitter @footcandlefilm. Al and I are also on Letterboxd, where you can track what we're seeing, and sometimes we leave little reviews. Do us a favor. If you like the show, consider giving us a star rating or write a review or share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcasts on, because it'll possibly help us reach new listeners. We'd appreciate it. Last but not least, I will mention Foot Candle Film Festival is coming up September 21st through the 25th. So if you are in North Carolina, come check us out. If you're in North Carolina but can't come to the festival, we're going to be doing online for those that are in North Carolina. So you could check us out that way. So either in person or online, September 21st through the 25th.
Okay. Good deal. Well, that will wrap it up for Foot Candle Films for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And we look forward to being back with you here in the coming weeks as we talk about other new films that have come out, some other movie news, and other movie recommendations. Chris, thanks. We'll talk to everybody next time.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.